Moms, I know you go through hard things. I know because I go through hard things. Kids, relationships, jobs. Last month, I did a series on how to get through hard things, and I have taken all of that material and put it together in one spot just for you. I encourage you to click the link. It will take you right to the page so you have everything you need for the next time you go through something that is difficult. Check it out. I hope it helps.
Hello, and welcome to the Moms Love Coaching Podcast, where we talk about self-care from the inside out for moms. I'm your host, Carrie McFarland, along with Angie Turgeon-Ledoux. We are certified life coaches and moms, and in this podcast, we'll go beyond the take a spa day advice and talk about real and sustainable ways that you can feel better, be happier, and stay out of overwhelm and burnout. You spend your life taking care of everyone else. In this podcast, each week, it's all about you taking care of you with no guilt and no apologies. We're so happy that you've decided to spend this time with us, so go ahead and grab your favorite cup of coffee, find a comfortable place, and get ready to spend the next 30 minutes focusing on the most important person in your life, you. Welcome, everybody, to Moms Love Coaching Self-Care from the Inside Out. I am Carrie McFarland here with Angie Turgeon-Ledoux. Hi, Angie.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
What'd you do this weekend?
Oh, my goodness. If it's not birthday parties, it's a graduation party or an alumni party. And my friend convinced me to go, which was beautiful because I touched base with a friend that I haven't spent any time with, I think almost 40 years since we've spent any significant time together. And he looks great. And it was wonderful to just catch up. And we made a plan for how we're going to get together again. And it just, I don't know, I left feeling like really felt connected to who I was in my teens and my early 20s. Because that girl has gotten a little bit lost, over time. And she was pretty cool, actually. I kind of liked her. And, I was like, I can be, reconnected to that part of myself. So that was really wonderful. How about you? What'd you all do?
We went to Western Mass. My husband and I are doing this thing on Saturday mornings. We are going to gourmet coffee shops, finding them kind of around the state. We just started, so we've only gone to two so far. So yesterday was the second one. And they were both in Western Mass, but just a little fun thing that we're doing because we like coffee and going to like those little coffee places and those little walk around towns and just kind of hanging out. And it's fun. It's fun for the summer, and I don't know what we'll do for the winter, but, just something to do together because we're both involved in our own things. And, we both have jobs and we both have our side things, and then there's the kids. And so it's just something that we can do together to just kind of hang out and have fun. So that's what we did. So we like Western Mass, and we're actually thinking of maybe getting like a condo or an apartment there that we can just go to when we want to, because we like Western Mass.
It's beautiful, y'all. If you haven't been to Western Mass, it's just gorgeous. Lots of rolling hills that look like ice cream scoop mountains, right? That's what I'm thinking of in northeastern Mass anyway. Just beautiful mountains and little towns, and you wonder how they survive because they're so there's hardly anything there, but you might find little gems and little country stores and stuff. And so that's a fun thing. And if the weather's great in the winter, you can still do that in the winter, and you can even come up to Vermont where Angie is.
Today we are talking about confusion. So we are in the middle of our series, or at the beginning of our June series of feelings that can keep you stuck. Last month was getting through hard things. This month is feelings that can keep you stuck. So last week we talked about fear. This week we're talking about confusion, because if there's any emotion that can keep you stuck where you are, it is confusion. as soon as you're confused, I mean, you've must have done this. I've done this a million times. Well, I don't know how to do that. And then that's it. You just walk away. You're done. You're like, I don't know how. And so you just get confused and you just stop even trying.
Sitting with confusion requires effort and energy. And it's like, I don't have any. So it's a little bit hard. I get frustrated. My frustration tolerance is my confusion tolerance. Maybe, hey, we could just coin a brand new term. My tolerance for confusion is less because I'm energetically tired. Like my brain energy is tired. So,
yeah. I mean, confusion, its job essentially is to make you think because you're confused about something. So you need to think about it. And when you're thinking about something that you've never thought about before, trying to figure something out that you've never tried to figure out before, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of mental energy and effort. And so your brain doesn't like that. Your brain doesn't, that's not efficient, right?
That is not in the motivational triad.
No, it is not efficient. If it's, I mean, that's why in marketing, what do they say? A confused mind just says no. So
a confused mind is a no.
If you're confused, you just say no because it's the easiest thing because you don't want to try to figure it out. It's confusing to you. So you're just no. And so you stop yourself. Now, people who aren't aware of being confused and what is happening, which I am 100% guilty of. You just stop.
Welcome to the human race.
Yeah. You just stop. You're like, because you confuse confusion with your ability to do things.
Right. You make it mean that if I'm confused and I can't understand this, there's something wrong with me.
Right. And so you think of it as, you just stop.
Like a character flaw.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
I want to make sure folks hear this, that in the research for this episode, confusion is absolutely necessary. It's an essential part of the learning process. And I'm like, oh, I guess, I mean, I probably knew that, like productive struggle we talk about in school. Mm-hmm. Confusion is 100% necessary for the learning process. And it's like we somehow judge ourselves again.
Yeah.
Is this learned behavior?
Yeah. I think it has to do with the whole failure is not an option. You know, we were taught that failure is bad. If I don't know how to do it, the risk of getting it wrong is too high.
Yep, too high.
And so you just stop because we have been conditioned to say that failure is bad, right? I mean, you're an educator. Think about the whole grading system, right?
Oh,
if you get an F,
get me started.
If you get an F, that's super bad, right?
Yes, and it just coincides with the word failure, at least in the English language, everybody.
Right, exactly. Right, exactly. So, and I'm sure that's why it's an F, because it stands for failure.
Or it just followed. No, but why wasn't it an E? Why wasn't it an E?
Right, exactly. ACD. It should be E, but it's not. It's F. Right. Right. And everybody knows if you get an F, that is bad. That is what we've been conditioned to think. So if you're confused and you don't know what to do, it's too risky to keep moving forward because you might get it wrong. And that means that you failed. And failing is the worst possible thing that you can do. This is what we've been conditioned to think.
I love what our coach says. And the first time she said this, I'm like, I love this. You're either winning or learning.
Right.
Well, so let's talk about confusion and anger and how closely those emotions, frustration is often expressed in anger. Anger or shut down, right, is really how I see it play out in me, in my personality and in my kids' personalities too. They'd either get super mad that they couldn't understand what was happening, or they would just shut down altogether.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I guess it also that wanting to run away from it and like be in denial that.
And think about that, right? I think those are internalized messages that you're not even aware that are inside you, because if you were taught from an early age that trying to figure something out is just a process, and confusion is just part of the process. Nothing is wrong with it. You're just confused. It makes you kind of stop and think about things. And if we had the message that that was something that is to be expected and even celebrated, then there would be no frustration when there was confusion, right? There would be no frustration because you'd internalize it as just part of the process. But
when you said that, it
Yeah.
made me think of being in the math classroom. So y'all, I taught middle level math for most of my career. In the classroom, I was in the classroom 18 years. So most of the time I taught math, middle level, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I remember saying that when the kids were like really perplexed by an idea, I would be like, yay, that means your brain is trying to take the new learning and find something in your head that it can attach to. Where is the connection there? If your brain, that confusion, what's happening in there is the brain looking for something it already knows in order to make sense of it, because the brain is a sense-making organ. It wants to understand the world.
Well, I'm thinking specifically, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, but there's this little Instagram video of this little girl. She's probably not even 2, right? Sitting on the floor with an empty coffee cup with, how it has the little, like, think of a Starbucks cup, that little tiny opening where you drink from, right? And so the activity was, it was fine motor skill stuff. The activity was for her to put a straw in that tiny little hole, right?
Okay.
And so she's sitting on the ground and she's like super, concentrating and trying to get it in, and she does it a couple times, and then all of a sudden she just throws it away and just flails her arms, and she's just like, never mind. And then she just stopped.
I gotta look this up.
It's funny. I'll send it to you if it comes up in my feed again. It's just funny. And then she just stops, and the look on her face is just like, I'm gonna punch somebody. She's like not even 2 yet, But that's what made me think about it. Now, because that's old enough to start internalizing the external messages you're getting, even if she didn't get it from her parents, right? There's grandparents, there's siblings who get it from school, there's neighbors, there's aunts, right? There's TV and iPads, right? All kinds of input that you're getting, right? So if she had internalized the message that this is just part of the process, and however long it takes is however long it takes, then she may have been a little more apt to sit there longer and try it. But no, she couldn't do it in the first couple times. Now, I don't know how long they had been taking the video. Maybe she'd been trying it for an hour. I don't know. But, maybe she would have tried longer if she didn't have that internalized message. And that's not something that we think about. We just think about things in terms of black and white. So she's a perfect example of, I can't do this, so never mind. And that is how confusion can be a feeling that keeps you stuck, because it stops you. You think you're confused, it means you can't do it, so never mind.
You can't do it. You'll never be able to do it. You're a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad person.
Yes, exactly. Right. So we confuse confusion again. We confuse confusion with not just our ability, but our intelligence.
And our worth.
And it has nothing to do with any of those things. It is just simply a natural process that your brain goes through, because it's going from point A to point B, and that middle part is the part where you're trying to figure it out. And that is what we call confusion. Now, if you keep going through that process, now that middle part may take a long time or a short time or a medium time, depending on what it is, but it doesn't matter. That middle part is the confusion, and the confusion is the natural process. Nothing has gone wrong. Right. And as a matter of fact, the confusion has, we think of confusion as a bad thing, right? Because we feel bad when we feel it. But really, confusion, like any other emotion, first of all, is neutral. It doesn't mean anything unless you attach a thought to it. But the other part of it is it has a purpose. Confusion has a purpose. Confusion slows you down, and it makes you think. And it makes you think, if you let it, if you don't stop yourself in frustration, right? If you let the confusion be there and understand what's happening, then it can help you think in deeper ways so you can figure it out and maybe come up with something that you never even thought of. But you have to be aware of what's happening, because otherwise you're going to think that it's just bad, which means stop.
So it's that idea. I was just thinking about the model, and that in the model, your thoughts create your feelings, create your actions. So if you're we'll start with the feeling. If you're staying in confusion, the thought must be something like, I don't understand this. I'm not getting this, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand. I feel confusion.
Or I'll never understand.
Well, then the action could be going down that rabbit hole of other thoughts that pile onto that and are judging that like, it's not good to feel. So I start thinking it's not good to feel confused. Yeah. So then
what's wrong with you? Why are you so stupid? Why, right?
I'm questioning my value, my worth, because I'm not understanding. And then that's that compounding effect of judging your thoughts, versus if you just thought, I don't understand this. And you're saying that in a way that's evoking the confusion absent the judgment.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then think about the last time that you really learned something new. Right. Can you think about a time when you were learning something new? I can. It was just this morning. My website. And it was like, I've been sitting in such frustration around the confusion. The frustration was a reaction to the confusion. It was a judgment of the confusion, versus sitting with the confusion and then just being like, okay, this is confusing. Like, it's a fact. It's confusing me. I feel confused. And then what can I do about it from this state of confusion? Well, I could ask questions. I could ask for help. I could back up, start over again. It's like I'm connecting one thing to the next, and then I can be confused and not be stuck. So that stuckness that you're talking about is that we in coaching world, they'd say, you're indulging. Why are you indulging in the confusion, or you're indulging in the confusion in that? Because that stuck place, you get very comfy in. It feels very comfortable in that you're not having to really put the brain effort into figuring out a solution.
Right. It's it stops you from doing things, and doing things takes effort. Right?
Absolutely.
So like you said, it keeps you in that comfortable place when you're just saying that you're confused. It also, it's a bit of a procrastination tool as well. Absolutely. Right? If you think about it, it keeps you from the anxiety of going into something that you don't know.
Sometimes that act of asking for help, it feels risky. I'm not, and I know as a mom, and when my kids were younger, asking for help was not easy for me to do. Well, some people, the first they hint of confusion, and they're like, help me.
Yeah.
They don't, work through it, but asking.
Yeah, there has to be a happy medium, right? If you're going to figure things out, it's sort of like going to the gym. If you're going to the gym and lifting weights, right? Like, think about lifting weights as your confusion. If you're not used to it, you're not going to be able to do it for very long. You're going to have to
Right.
rest and come back to it, rest and come back to it. But you also can't necessarily, you can't have somebody come in and do it for you, right?
Right.
You can have somebody come in and show you how so you can do it yourself, but you can't have somebody come do it for you because you're not going to build up your muscles. And the same is true for confusion. You're not going to be able to build up that ability to handle confusion and work through it and get to a solution if you're constantly looking for somebody else to solve it for you. Right. You can use somebody to sort of bounce things back, bounce things off of, and have somebody help you work through something, but you have to be thinking about it. If you're not thinking about it and somebody just hands it to you, you're not going to learn anything, it's not helpful. So it's good to ask for help when you need it, but not as a replacement for you figuring things out.
When kids don't have that perseverance, learned helplessness. And, there is, you can train your kids to not solve their own problems, to not become confusion is uncomfortable on purpose. It's because that brain is trying to find where it can connect. And so you experience it as confusion. What do you think about confusion just sort of lasting longer than other kinds of emotions? I think as your brain tries to work it out, like so you step away.
I think part of the reason it lasts longer, it depends on what it is, right? So depending on what you're trying to solve, it could last longer. But I think sometimes it also lasts longer because we keep stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting.
Yeah.
And so you never really, and sometimes you need to do that, right? Because you, like I said, you kind of need a rest. And then sometimes if you come back to it with, a fresh thought process, it'll sometimes, right? That's happened to me. I'm sure that's happened to you. Come back to it and you're like, oh, why don't I just do this? And all of a sudden you figured it out, So, I think that's part of it too. But it's interesting what you said about the learned helplessness for the kids, because I'm thinking back and I'm totally guilty of this, of not letting my kids figure everything out when they were little. And here's why. I know exactly why. Because they would have a fit, right? And not a fit in terms of like being, I guess it was a temper tantrum, but not a temper tantrum because they were spoiled or couldn't, have a candy bar or something. It was like kind of like that little girl in the video. She just was like, never mind, and right. And so we haven't, And so if they would cry or get upset, as a mom, I interpreted that as, that is bad. I need to stop that for my child. I need to stop them feeling terrible, because that's my job as a mom, and not realizing that frustration that they were feeling is part of the process of them figuring it out. And that me, kind of like I said, me jumping in and helping didn't actually help them. It made it worse, because it made it, they started to internalize, well, I can't figure it out. Or they were conditioned to get to that point and then have somebody fix it for them. But it was all around my conditioning too, as a mom, thinking, if they're crying, that's bad and I need to fix it, And so I think all of that is connected as well.
One of the strategies, so when you work with little kids that do get frustrated like that, a lot of times is they don't have the language to express themselves, so they'll have an outburst. So like I noticed this with my 3-year-old grandson, like when he gets frustrated, like give him the words. Oh, you're feeling angry, you're frustrated right now. This is frustrating, so that the crying is an expression of something that they can't verbalize. So
I think
absolutely.
that helps the mom too to
Yeah.
say that out loud, because it's like
Yeah.
you kind of realize that's what's happening, but in
Mhm.
the moment you're frustrated too, because
Right.
you know they're acting out in a certain way, and that can be frustrating, maybe less or more depending on how your day's going, but it can be frustrating. So if you stop yourself to give them the language, it's almost like your brain hears that too, and it's
Right.
like, okay, they're frustrated, they're you know, they are confused, they are this, they are that, right? So it kind of slows you down too, just think that is kind of what's happening for them, you know.
Mhm.
The biggest thing that I have learned doing this research for this podcast is because you never really think about confusion having an upside, right? And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but that the deep thinking that your brain will start to do if you don't stop yourself can, number one, make all the difference in terms of what you're trying to learn or accomplish. And number two, it builds your tolerance for that confusion. So the next time that you're confused about something, you will be more apt to kind of let the process happen instead of feeling like something's gone wrong and stopping it. You know, you don't need to avoid making mistakes, because mistakes are how we learn. I had a coach once in a group that I was in, and she would call mistakes must stakes because
That's
you
cute.
must make them
Right.
to learn.
Right.
So she would call
Yeah.
them mistakes, and I was like, oh, that's really good. I like that.
That's cute. That's
Yeah. So confusion is not, I mean, it can keep you stuck if you let it. You know, it's just like anything else. It's something that we have sort of decided as a society is bad. And so you have all these thoughts and judgments about it when you feel confused, and then you stop yourself. Or you can be a little more aware of what's happening, which is kind of the key to anything. If you have awareness into something, then you can kind of look at it from afar and see what's happening, rather than just be in it and experience it and think that this is really bad and I need to get away from it. You can kind of see it from a different perspective if you're aware of what's happening. And it allows you to have the process just happen. I mean, if you think about, let's think about like if you break your leg and say what that must have been like for you know, cavemen, right? let's just like go all the way back, right? You break your leg. Like that's the reality. Their leg is broken. There's no doctors to explain to you that, okay, if you set it like this and you rest, you know, your bone will heal and you'll be able to, right? All they know is that they can't walk and it hurts. And now they can't do what they need to do, and they don't know if it's going to last forever and ever and ever. They have no idea. But if you have the awareness that, okay, my leg is broken and it hurts. If I can do this and this and this and let the process happen and my leg will heal, I will be able to walk again and it will be okay. It's probably an extreme example, but it's just, you know.
I never really thought of that before, but yeah.
I mean, it kind of makes you think, like, if you don't understand what's happening, then you just think it's really bad and you have to get away from it. But if you do understand what's happening, then you can see it in a different way and you'll be able to let it play out the way that you need to let it play out to get to the other side. And once you're at the other side, you'll realize, oh, I can do these things. I don't need to let it stop me. I can feel uncomfortable in the middle part, but if I stick with it, then the part that's next feels better and even pretty great, because you realize that you kind of overcame something that you didn't think you could overcome.
Right.
So that's just kind of how I think about it. So confusion is not the end point, people.
Right.
It is not the end point. It's just the middle. It's just part of it. You don't need to avoid it. It's embrace it, really. I mean, it's just all part of the process. We'll end it there. Confusion is not the end point. That's if one thing sticks in your mind from this podcast, that's what I want you, or from this episode, that's what I want you to take away. Confusion is not the end point like that.
All right, y'all.
All right, everybody. Until next time, we will see you.
Bye everyone.
Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to us if you like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. This makes it easier for everyone to find us and helps us spread our message about self-care from the inside out. Have a wonderful week, and remember, making yourself the priority is the highest form of self-care.